It is the 65th training camp in franchise history, the 14th in St. Joseph, but the first for a team that was the first team in NFL history, at least in 6,944 days, to win back-to-back Super Bowls, and now they're trying to be the first team ever to win a three-peat. Welcome to St. Joseph, everybody, and our first live stream from here on the campus of Missouri Western State University. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. Our live streams from camp are brought to you by the phenomenal people at Mosaic, headquartered here in St. Joseph. But they do incredible work, 365 days, part of the Mayo Clinic Care Network, but they actually cover a four-state area when you look at southeast Nebraska, northeast Kansas, southwest Iowa, and, of course, in northwest Missouri. They're phenomenal. They're here helping every day with camp and every day for all of you. Matt, your thoughts overall, because you and I, for the last 100 days, have been watching this team, a team trying to chase history. Nobody says anything about it, which is good. It's no talk about it, but you can sense it every day. And what we saw in the summer and the spring has carried over to the start of this camp.
And what's amazing is we won the Super Bowl 5 months ago. We just completed, again, the shortest offseason in NFL history. But the guys are so ready to go, so excited to go after this history. We talk about the history that's in front of us right now. You mentioned it. No team has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row. But how do you get there? You don't get there by talking about it. Get there by getting work in here on the practice field in St. Joe. This is day 4 of 19 practices up here at Missouri Western. Seen some really good things so far, and we'll talk about them. But yeah, the journey's underway.
The biggest thing I have seen here so far in St. Joseph is the continuation of the tempo. There's a real tempo to this team and how they do their work and how much they get done and the volume of work that they have and the creativity. But I'm seeing that in basically all 3 phases, and for sure on offense and defense so far.
You want to see both sides of the ball succeed. Like, we're all offensive fans, right? We want to see Patrick Mahomes go out there and light it up. But if you're seeing that every single day, things are going wrong with the defense. The good news for this camp so far is we've seen both sides of the ball really find success. So on day 1 and day 3, it was the offense. Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure you saw the throws on social, was unbelievable with some throws that should not be normal. They should be impossible. He has normalized them here in the NFL, and we see them. They're just remarkable. We've seen the third level of the field open up for sure. We'll talk about that some more as well with Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice. But then on day 2, the defense stood out. Defense was spectacular. Joshua Williams had an awesome interception. Saw some cornerback blitzes that were really effective. So we're seeing both sides of the ball find success so far, and I'd say so far today it's the defense.
Yeah, it carries over. If you go back and find our last Defending the Kingdom called The Plant Shutdown, we talked about the third level of the offense is back open for business. This team has won back-to-back Super Bowls and wasn't as impactful at the 20-plus yard play down the field of the third level as the teams were in 19, 20, 18, 17. And that's back.
Yeah.
And it's every day. It's not like it's a flash. It's happening every day at some point where the third level of the offense is there.
It's been a point of emphasis. It was that way in off-season practices, and we've seen that here in St. Joe. It's so exciting. Like, this team has been so good over the last several years, of course, back-to-back Super Bowl champs. But you can get even better, and finding that deep passing game again is the point of emphasis, I think, for the offense during this camp. And we've seen it. You saw the Xavier Worthy catch on day 1. That was remarkable. I mean, just incredible speed. He was the fastest player in NFL history at the scouting combine. We saw that speed out here. But also Hollywood Brown. Don't forget about Hollywood Brown and what he can do. He's really kind of a complete player. We've seen him find success on slants and short passes as well. But the third level of the field is definitely open with players like Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and also Rashee Rice. Didn't see a ton of that from Rashee last year, but he definitely did it in college at SMU. And there was a play yesterday, one-on-one down the sideline in 11-on-11, beat the corner for a big catch downfield. Rashee Rice, I think, has a big season in the vertical passing game as well this year.
No question, especially when you've got to pay attention to the other two and if you're in a 3 wide. The other thing before we jump into the part of football that nobody ever thinks about and should every day of their lives, but is the fact that as creative as the Chiefs are on offense, they are that creative on defense, in my opinion. And it's okay. I put it out on Twitter/X the other day. It's okay to cheer if you come out here for a great defensive play. And we've seen great defensive plays.
Oh, yeah.
But people have discussed what's going to happen with no L'Jarius Sneed, losing Mike Edwards. But what I've been able to see, I get as excited about the defense being even better maybe than a year ago, and I know the statistics were great, but this defense has a chance for some real upside in being explosive.
This was the best defense in the NFL last year. I know technically they were the number 2 scoring defense, but the number 1 scoring defense was Baltimore, and the Chiefs beat Baltimore in Baltimore. So therefore, I think this was the best defense in the NFL last year. Have a chance to be even better this season. Yeah, there's some competition there. How do you fill L'Jarius Sneed's role going into 2024? But we've seen some really good things. And we always talk about this. Cheer the defense. If you come up to camp and the defense makes a play, don't go, get excited, because that's a good thing. A defense made a play against the best quarterback in the NFL. It happened yesterday. Spags was down here in the end zone right behind us, and Drew Tranquill made a great play, and the crowd kind of groans like, we wanted to see a touchdown. And Spags is like, come on, cheer the defense. It's a good thing if the defense makes a play too. So if you come out to camp, cheer the defense as well.
Especially the way they played in 2023. I say it a lot, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll say it every time I'm talking about the offensive line. You know I love football at all levels,
yes.
Right, all throughout the kingdom, from 6-man football all the way up to the National Football League.
Digital football.
Love it. Those digital guys, big hearts. But if you find a good football team with a bad offensive line, let me know, because it will be the first one. We're going to focus to start our live stream of we're going to have several coming from camp. Yes, with the offensive line. You don't play fantasy football with them. You should. If you're really creative, figure out a way to play fantasy football with the offensive line.
Like pancakes?
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Just because you can't win without it. And the Kansas City Chiefs, well, let's start. There are 15 offensive linemen in this camp. But we're going to start with the 4 that you basically know about that have become arguably the best group of 4, with Juwan Taylor coming on last year at the end of the season. But let's talk about the guys you know, from left guard to right tackle. Joe Thuney still recovering from that pectoral injury that he had against Buffalo in the playoffs. Creed Humphrey, now with the retirement of Travis Kelce's brother, Jason Kelce, is now the best center in the NFL. You look at right guard, Trey Smith, redrafted 6th round to 1st round. And then Juwan Taylor, who was a story last year in the playoffs that nobody talked about. Let's start with those 4, what you're seeing so far going into this 2024 season.
Well, on one end, I think the 3 interior guys, it's really not a question. It's the best 3 interior offensive linemen in the NFL as a unit. ESPN did like a positional breakdown poll over the course of the offseason. They ranked all the position groups, all the players at every position group. And at interior offensive line, so grouping together guard and center, Joe Thuney was ranked number 4, Creed Humphrey number 7, Trey Smith number 9. The Chiefs were the only team in that poll to have multiple players in the top 10, and they had 3 of them. So it's the best interior group in the NFL. And you're right about Juwan Taylor. I had a chance to talk to Juwan yesterday. You'll hear that in a moment. He's a player that is a really good player, first of all, dealt with some adversity early in the year, but came on at the end of the season. And the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl last year without Juwan Taylor.
Last year in the playoffs, Juwan Taylor had 1 false start, and he had 1 holding penalty. And keep in mind, look who he's playing against. -28 wind chill against Miami, at Buffalo, at Baltimore, San Francisco. Terrific defensive fronts, all of them. And Juwan Taylor actually played his best football at the end of the year. Here's the other key fact with Juwan Taylor. You know how many sacks he's given up in the postseason in his career? This includes 2 games with Jacksonville in the postseason, including a loss to the Chiefs, going back to 2022. 0 sacks. He's given up no sacks in the postseason. And to me, Juwan Taylor, and you had a chance to talk to him, but I'm encouraged with Juwan Taylor. He looks different and better this year at right tackle.
And Coach Heck said this a few weeks ago, that these guys are all so good that we kind of think of them as robots. Like a free agent signs with a new team, he should just plug in and be great right away. But playing on the offensive line is so important to have cohesion as a group. It's not just an individual position. It's a team sport in so many ways, but the offensive line in particular is so important to have cohesion with your teammates. And when you're new, it's hard to build that. But over the course of the year and over the course of this offseason, I think he's really built that relationship with his teammates on the offensive line. He looks way more comfortable this year, I think, and he's going to get off to a much better start, I think, this year than he did last year.
And at the critical point of the season, after the loss to the Raiders on Christmas Day, Chiefs didn't give up a completion in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarters. That still boggles my mind. The next day, on 26 December, it being 9-6 and thinking the Chiefs are done, it was the offensive line that took the lead. It was Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Joe Thuney. They took the lead and said no more, and that meant no more losses because that team took the lead. The leadership of these guys, I think is underrated.
It's easy to forget about the end of the regular season last year and how kind of intense those games were because we won the Super Bowl and we had these awesome playoff games. But those games, like against the Patriots, against the Bengals for sure, those felt like playoff games, games the Chiefs had to win. And really, that emphasis began with the offensive line. You're totally right.
But you had a chance to talk with Juwan Taylor. This offensive line group, and you mentioned it well, has to communicate. It is indeed a subculture where it has to perform at the highest level, especially with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. For Juwan Taylor, it's not about a comfort zone, but it's about being more comfortable.
We're down here with Juwan Taylor. And Juwan, just second year in the system. How comfortable right now do you think you are compared to maybe this time last year?
Definitely more comfortable. Been soaking in the playbook, make sure I'm studying a little bit more. Just trying to grasp the whole playbook, and I feel like I've been doing pretty well with it.
The cohesiveness as an offensive line is so important. It's mostly the same guys coming back from last year. Playing next to Trey Smith, one of the best guards in the NFL. How's your relationship growing with those guys on the offensive line?
Oh, really well, man. I love the group. I feel like Coach Heck's doing a great job with us. Coach Matei doing a great job with us. We got a great unit, solid group of guys, and we all come out and just try to work and get better every day as a group.
You're a veteran in this league, but you just mentioned it, always trying to get better. Any specific individual goals for you this training camp?
Definitely get better with my penalties from last year. Other than that, man, just keep building off of, last year, try to get better and make sure I'm keeping 15 upright and, make sure I'm keeping Pacheco with some lanes open and just doing my part in helping the team.
You got a rookie tackle in your room now in Kingsley Suamataia. Your thoughts on Kingsley so far in his NFL career?
I feel like he's doing well, man. He's definitely gelling well. He listens very well, and he's taking in the system pretty well. So I think he's going to be a great player for us.
Appreciate it, Juwan.
Thank you.
The offensive line, an interesting group, but it also leads to maybe the biggest question for the 2024 Chiefs and in this training camp, and that is what happens at left tackle. The Chiefs had Donovan Smith last year, basically as a one-year player. Donovan did an excellent job. I mean, the Chiefs win a Super Bowl with him. He's not in this camp. So it's a battle right now between Wanya Morris, who was thrown into the fire last year in the crux of the season in December, and then also Kingsley Suamataia, who is the rookie out of BYU. And those two, basically, it's like 1-1. But your thoughts in the left tackle chase to get something solidified at that spot?
Yeah, it's the number one battle of camp, is who's going to be the Chiefs' left tackle. Good news is we have two young players with upside competing for that spot. It'd be different if it was two players who were like 32 years old competing for the spot. But no, I mean, Kingsley Suamataia is 21 years old, just turned 21 in January. Just potential through the roof, such a young player. And Wanya Morris doesn't get the credit he deserves, I think, for some really good things he did as a starter last year. You mentioned it. Donovan Smith got hurt at the end of last season, and Wanya Morris was just playing on special teams at that point, got thrown in the fire at left tackle, and was playing games the Chiefs needed to win. That Cincinnati game I mentioned on the front end, such an important game for the Chiefs, he allowed just 3 pressures on 34 pass blocking snaps. And you might say, Matt, Joe Burrow didn't play in that game. Well, Joe Burrow doesn't play defense. Their defense was healthy in that game. Trey Hendrickson was healthy. Sam Hubbard was healthy. And Wanya Morris was one of the best players on the field. So Wanya Morris, there were some areas to grow, of course, last year, but I think he earned an opportunity to be in this competition. And Kingsley Suamataia, second-round pick out of BYU, a lot of reps at left tackle last year for BYU. He's certainly talented as well. So good problem to have, one of the battles of the training camp and the preseason.
With Wanya, 4 starts in that kind of crucible of the season. 2-2, though, in those starts. And he faced a gauntlet of pass rushers. You think of Buffalo's group. You think of the Raiders group, and they were disruptive in that game, Max Crosby and his friends. And Wanya was thrown into the fire. The other thing I think, too, that was important for Wanya, and this was in placement protection pretty much, some tackle over tackle, but he played against Baltimore in the AFC Championship game and also was on the field in Super Bowl 58. To me, that's big. He has been, even if it wasn't as the starting left tackle in those games, he was on the field. And so that gives him unique experience going into his second year to give him a fighting chance to maybe win the job.
And you can't simulate that experience. The only way to get experience in the NFL is to play, and a lot of those games he was playing at left tackle. Now, the onus is on him to build on that. You can't just say, hey, I played last year, therefore I'm the guy. Like, you got to build on it, and that's part of why Kingsley is in this camp now. You have to try to push Wanya to be even better. So that's the question going into this camp, but again, good problem to have.
And for Kingsley, it's his bloodline. I mean, he's a cousin of Puka Nacua. That's his cousin,
and
right?
Penei Sewell.
And Penei Sewell. I mean, this is in his bloodline. But when you see and watch video of him at BYU, you see the ceiling. I mean, that's there. This guy could really grow. He's athletic. You know, one thing I like about his background, he has a boxing background.
Yeah.
And the fact that using hand placement and being a boxer and being able to have rapid hand movement and foot movement is so important, especially at left tackle. So it's not going to be instant oatmeal. It can't be. But he's smart. He's very tough. He's a mauler and brawler, and he's willing to learn. But it'll be interesting to watch him climb even as camp grows.
And the pads come on Friday. So tomorrow is an off day, and they come back, and the pads are on Friday. It'll be the first time these guys have worn pads since the Super Bowl. So you can work on a lot of stuff in the offseason and in these early practices on the offensive line without the pads on, but you can't really play football. We're going to get a lot of answers on Friday and beyond.
We'll close out the offensive line with the rest of the room. Again, there's 15 offensive linemen on this team, probably 9 will be on the 53 to start the year. Sometimes you could go with 8, depending on how you set up your roster. But then there's a challenge. We've seen how important backups are. Nick Allegretti coming in for Joe Thuney last year. We already mentioned that. Nick Allegretti, his work earned him a contract, a good contract with the Washington Commanders. So a question becomes not only left tackle, but who becomes the new Nick Allegretti? He was with this team, won 3 Super Bowls. We remember the big man touchdown in 21. But his play last year in the Super Bowl and also in the AFC Championship game was stellar. Who becomes that guy? Mike Caliendo is a guy who's been in this system. He can very versatile, but I would think what we've seen this spring and summer, and we've seen already in this camp, is the way Andy Heck, in trying to build the rest of this offensive line room, it starts with versatility. Who can be the most versatile? Who can play center guard? Who can play guard tackle? Because more often than not, especially if you're going to win 20 or 21 games or have that schedule to win a Super Bowl, you're almost always going to have those guys with depth on the offensive line.
Being that Swiss Army knife is such a thankless role. I mean, Nick Allegretti, how important was he to us really over the course of his career with the Chiefs? I remember watching practices with you last summer, and there was instances where Allegretti would come in at left tackle for a snap, comes out. All right, now left guard for a snap, comes out, center, and so on and so forth. Why is he doing that? Well, when Joe Thuney, the best left guard in the NFL, is out of the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, Nick Allegretti can go in there, and the offense does not skip a beat. Now, he's not here anymore, so who's going to fill that role? And I think you're right. Right now, it's probably Mike Caliendo. And you've trademarked the term crockpot guy, right? That's trademarked. It's a great term.
I should have trademarked. Maybe I will.
I think you should, and it makes sense. It's a player comes in like Caliendo in 2022 as an undrafted free agent, spends time on the practice squad. Last year, made the team, mostly a special teamer. But he's been here now, going into his 3rd year. He's versatile, can play all the interior positions. Let's see what you can do if all of a sudden Joe Thuney or Trey Smith or Creed Humphrey gets hurt. You can trust Mike Caliendo to go in there and play, and the offense does not skip a beat. So Caliendo is a name to know. Also Hunter Norzad, a versatile player out of Penn State, 5th-round pick. Saw him playing some left guard today. He can play those interior spots. And even Lucas Niang. Lucas Niang, of course, a right and left tackle for this team over his career with the Chiefs, was playing left guard yesterday. So we're seeing the versatility of this group so far throughout this camp.
And so more on Mike Caliendo. The injury last year to Thuney moved everybody up, right? The fact that Caliendo played in all 4 playoff games too. Again, placement protection, but just like Niang, Caliendo ran on that field in all 4 playoff games, which is big for him. And I'm really intrigued with Hunter Norzad. Started his career at Cornell where he played right tackle. He played right tackle. Now we've seen his versatility, as you pointed out, at both center and at guard. And last year at Penn State, after 2 years at Cornell, 2 years at Penn State, but he was only one of 10 Power 5 centers to not allow a sack last year. And this is at Penn State. They played some big-time games, home and on the road. And he has played 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. So he wears number 60 when you come to camp. And watching and listening to the preseason games, Hunter Norzad ought to be somebody that's you pay attention to.
That versatility is so important. C.J. Hansen is another one, a late-round pick by the Chiefs out of Holy Cross. He had 38 straight starts at right guard to end his career at Holy Cross, but also worked on snapping the football during the pre-draft process. And we've seen him play some center as well during the offseason training program. Hansen also, did you know he was the first player to be drafted out of Holy Cross since?
Ooh, you got me.
Rob McGovern by the Chiefs way back in 1989. How about that? Carrying on a legacy.
Where's Rob as we speak? I'm sure he's a Kingdom defender somewhere.
I'm sure he is.
But you're thinking, why do you spend so much time on the offensive line? Well, guess who would be enthralled with this would be Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, if the Chiefs are going to get this done, the offensive line has got to perform, and we anticipate it at the level that they have. Depth, skill, versatility, communication. The Chiefs have it all there, and if left tackle gets figured out, look out.
And you know what I love is walking down the hill earlier today. If you've been to camp, you know what I'm talking about. There's a hill the guys walk down to get down to the practice field. I saw Jawan Taylor and Kingsley Suamataia walking together, and Jawan had his arm around Kingsley talking about what happened yesterday. So that leadership is invaluable. This team's getting better here over the last 4 days, and they'll continue to do so.
Well, now we transition to where you do play fantasy football, and that is running back. And with 7 running backs right now in that position category, although we've seen, we'll get to this in a second, but wide receivers have kind of slipped over there and had some reps. Let's jump into the running back room. And where you start is Isaiah Pacheco. Really phenomenal going into his 3rd year. It seems like he's been here longer than that with all of the action that he's had and all of the touches that he's had. But with Isaiah Pacheco, he looks like, remember he had the shoulder injury that kind of slowed him down as far as kind of jumping back into it. He's on fire right now. And for Isaiah Pacheco, it's like going and trying to find the next level.
His energy is so infectious, just every single day. I had a chance to talk to Isaiah. You'll hear that in a moment. But what a year for him last year. I mean, 935 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns in 14 games. That Bengals game I keep referencing, he was the horse in that game. 130 rushing yards against the Bengals in Week 17. And he rushed for at least 65 yards in all 4 postseason games. Next checkpoint for him is a 1,000-yard season. And I asked him about that. You'll hear it in a moment. But I think Isaiah Pacheco is one of the top young running backs in the NFL, and the Chiefs got him in the 7th round 2 years ago.
And he had had it, too, if he plays Week 18. But he sat Week 18, right? And that helped him to get ready for the playoffs, of course, with his shoulder injury that he was playing through. And his 510 postseason rushing yards is 2nd in NFL history. This is also a trivia question you can have a lot of fun with your buddies, because who's first on that list?
I don't know.
Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is the number 1 leading rusher in postseason history, but number 2 is Isaiah Pacheco at 510 rushing yards and the touches that he had last year. To me, for Isaiah Pacheco, and we even mentioned this last year, and we saw some movement there, is being effective as a pass blocker and as a pass receiver. Matt, he had 19 catches in his last 4 games, regular season last year, and not just catching checkdowns or circles or angles, even popping a second-level throw where you get him against a linebacker, and all of a sudden you get pop to pop for maybe a 40 or 50-yard passing play.
And overall on the year, saw an improvement in that area. Had 44 catches for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. But in an Andy Reid offense, the running back has to be a receiver. Think about guys like Brian Westbrook early in Coach Reid's days with the Eagles. So Pacheco has all the talent in the world. And speed, I don't think he gets credit for. He ran like in the 4.3s at his pro day and at the combine. So great speed, great power. He can be a running back who can catch the football in this league. I think also that's the next step for him, is be an even better receiver out of the backfield.
Touches. You had a chance to talk to Isaiah Pacheco, whether running it or catching it. He's touching it a lot.
All right, we're down here with Isaiah Pacheco. And Isaiah, it's year 3. You're a veteran now. Do you feel old yet?
No, I do not feel old. My body still feels young. I'm just excited to be out here with the men, the leaders. I'm excited every time we come to St. Joe's. I'm excited for that hill.
Thinking about last year, you were out here in a gold jersey because you're coming off the injury. Nobody could hit you. How good do you feel this time around?
Oh, I'm excited, bro. It's more of a blessing to not be injured and be off of that list and just be out here with the guys, not with the QBs and not in the yellow jersey like a bumblebee. Back in red, and we're flying around, seeing anything that's color.
You're so close to 1,000 yards rushing last year. I think 935 yards. You were right there. What would it mean to you if you can hit 1,000 yards rushing this year?
It would mean the absolute world to me. Not only I know it would mean a lot to my offensive linemen. We've been working really hard as a unit to accomplish that goal, and we're unsatisfied.
And last question, just want to ask you about one of your teammates. Lewis Reese-Zammit is making the switch from rugby to running back in the NFL. What have you seen out of Lewis this training camp?
Lewis has been phenomenal. His transition has been great. Just being able to finish, that's what is most important out here, and just following the leaders and just being a player.
1,000 yards incoming for this guy.
Again, for Isaiah Pacheco, his longest reception in his career, 33 yards in that Jets game last year. We had the 48-yard run. And opening up the 3rd level of the offense that we alluded to at the beginning of the live stream, also opens up an opportunity for Pacheco for a seam, a wheel. He gets a mismatch, and he becomes an effective pass catcher at level 2 and level 3. Look out, because that's the next step for Isaiah Pacheco.
And really, that evolution starts here, and I think that's why him being able to participate fully in this camp, as opposed to last year when he was in the gold jersey, the bumblebee jersey, like he just said, that made things a little bit difficult. I mean, he wasn't being able to participate in full contact practices when the pads came on. You couldn't hit him at all. Well, now he's a full go. He's healthy, and I think that's a big deal. That'll help him evolve even more in this offense, I think, going into year 3.
And he missed 3 games last year, 2 due to injury, and then 1 when he set out week 18. Next on this list of the 7 running backs in that room is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Insert adjective here. Clyde, the first-round pick of 2020, has had his moments, and we saw him have moments last year. First of all, he played in all 4 playoff games.
Yeah.
He played in the Super Bowl this time. And the fact that in the New England game, you saw his catch at the back of the end zone. Also in that game, Clyde had a 48-yard reception against New England. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can be very, very effective in this offense.
Yeah, he can, and the health last year can't be overstated. He played in 15 games last year, and that was kind of the challenge for Clyde early in his career, was just staying healthy, but he was healthy for the majority of last season. And that Patriots game in Week 15, must-win game for the Chiefs, he helped us win that game, over 100 yards from scrimmage. Maybe we don't win that game against the Patriots without Clyde having the game that he did. So you need contributions from everyone. I think because Clyde was a first-round pick, sometimes the expectations are altered, but he helps his team win. And with Jarrett McKinnon no longer in Kansas City, maybe Clyde can take on that third down role a bit more here in 2024.
The ankle injury in 2022 slowed him down, missed the playoffs basically, and then he had the MCL injury in 21. He's missed 19 games of a possible 67, but when he's on the field, it can be consistent. Again, he'll help this team. And then in the rest of that room, it's a lot of guys you don't really know about. Maybe you remember Keontae Ingram with his brief stint with the Arizona Cardinals. And then it's young guys that come into play that will be worth paying attention to in the preseason games. But the rest of the room, to me, is a little bit of a mystery, especially when you take into account maybe something that people don't give enough credit to, and that was the play of Jerick McKinnon, especially in these last 2 Super Bowl runs of what McKinnon did. We remember his unselfish slide in Super Bowl 57, maybe the most unselfish play in Super Bowl history, allowed the Chiefs to win the game. And then last year, the way he, first of all, I didn't think he'd play Super Bowl 58. He just was able to fight through it and was effective in that game. But someone has to fill that role of Jerick McKinnon. He's not on this roster right now. But that's such a big role in this offense.
He did so much for us over the last 2 years. In many ways, he was a spark plug. Look back at games over the last 2 seasons where the Chiefs' offense was maybe struggling a little bit, and then Jerick McKinnon made a play, and things got going. Such a good pass protector, and also a receiver out of the backfield. He had like 9 receiving touchdowns a couple years ago out of the backfield. Have to find a way to replace that production. Doesn't necessarily have to be a running back, though. That's one thing we've talked about throughout camp. Coach Reed, of course, is so creative. You can have a receiver back there, maybe a guy like Nico or Mejio. Kadarius Toney has gotten some running back snaps in this camp. So receivers as well maybe can fill that void. But that's part of what training camp is all about, figuring those things out.
Yeah, if we talk about left tackle, I think second on the list, at least for me, would be, as we kind of navigate our way through this training camp and also the 3 preseason games, would be that third down back role. And is that a wide receiver? Is it a combination? And probably it's fill in all the above. But again, it's a very important role, and protection is key there, because many times you're in nickel, and that running back will be either not chip and release guy, but they've got to pick up blitzes, and that's where McKinnon was so good. It's work under progress. But once the pads come on Friday, one of the things to watch is when running backs block against linebackers in that drill. And people want to watch the one-on-one passing game right on the other field. Nope, watch the running backs when they've got to block the linebackers, because this training camp in specific, it will be watched even more closely than other camps.
For those running backs trying to make the team kind of on the back end of the roster, pass pro is so important. And that's part of the discussion with Louis Rees-Zammit, the former rugby star in Wales, who's now in this camp as a running back. Pass protection, I think, is maybe the second most important thing for him to master if he wants to make this team. But the first thing being special teams. Special teams, if you're wondering how LRZ could make this team, that's the way. And we can talk about him a little bit here because he's a very interesting story. Grew up watching football in Wales. His dad played professionally in the United Kingdom. Deshaun Jackson was his favorite player as a kid. Of course, played for Coach Reed in Philadelphia for so many years. Now he's in this camp, and there's some elements of rugby that transfer to football. If you watch rugby, of course, a running back kind of makes sense for him, but special teams is the area he has to find success, maybe as a return man with these new kickoff rules, maybe a blocker on the kickoff rules as well, because you can have two guys back there. He could be the blocker and not the return man on some of these. Even as a kicker, we've seen him kick some balls here as a kickoff specialist too. So LRZ is another interesting guy to watch in this camp, number 9 in a red jersey.
Very much interested to watch him. The new kickoff rule could lead to LRZ making this team.
Yeah.
Not only as a returner or a blocker on the return, but as a potential kicker. With the quad injury right now to Justin Reed, it's Harrison Bucker is doing that role now. They worked on it yesterday. I'm just going to tell you, and I spoke in Springfield to a group of several hundred fans on Monday night. Nobody's thinking about the new kickoff rule. We could do a whole live stream on it alone. It's pretty crazy. But LRZ could make this team because of that for a variety of reasons. You mentioned special teams. There's other guys that, and the young guys on this team. Mentioned Keontae Ingram. We can talk about him, but he's got veteran experience. When you look at him and what he did in 2 years in Arizona, he had 70 touches with the Cardinals. They released him in November. The Chiefs astutely were able to sign him to the practice squad last year in just days after Thanksgiving. And to put him in this camp, again, he's one to watch. Remember LaMichael Pirine and what he did last year, especially in that win over Denver in Week 18. I'm sorry, against the Chargers in Week 18.
We loved that one.
That 13-12 win. I should get a T-shirt made about it. We got into why that means more than you know. But all of a sudden, then Ingram becomes part of that discussion as a veteran presence.
Yeah, a 6th-round pick in 2022. This is a player who was drafted by an NFL team just a couple of years ago and a star at USC just a few years ago. So Keontae Ingram has a real shot, I think, to make this team with the way things are shaking out at running back. And 2 rookies to know, Amani Bailey out of TCU and Carson Steele out of UCLA, but really Ball State. Ball State is where Carson Steele put up, video game numbers. If you're playing the new college football 25 game, Carson Steele is like a video game kind of player at Ball State because he rushed for 1,556 yards and 15 touchdowns while forcing 96 missed tackles 2 years ago. Last year, he led UCLA in rushing. Just a jacked, strong running back who maybe can be a special teamer. And Amani Bailey is interesting as well. Really good at TCU last year, rushed for 1,209 yards, 8 touchdowns, averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Get this is a fun one. One of only 9 Power 5 players to average 100 rushing yards per game, and one of just 3 to record 70 or more forced missed tackles. So Amani Bailey also been out here as a return man in the kickoff game. He's a name to watch as well.
And he averaged 21 touches in 2023. So Bailey was a huge part of the TCU Horned Frog offense, not only as a runner, but showed the ability to catch the football. Go back of what we just talked about and how that's necessary in this offense. Bailey's one to watch. He kind of has the body of, I'm not saying he's Jerry McKinnon, but he kind of has that same kind of body type, toughness, and I think agility to potentially somewhere down the road get that. And back to Carson Steele. Bruce Feldman's power list, right? The freak list.
The freaks list.
He made the freaks list. How did he make the freaks list? Well, he benched 450, he power cleaned 350, and he squatted 675. Now, can I name drop on you here?
Please.
All right. Right before camp, I was at the Hy-Vee IndyCar race.
Yeah.
With co-hosting that for Hy-Vee. Guess who's there? David Letterman, because the Ray Hall Letterman racing team, right? He's the biggest Ball State fan on the planet. And he was talking Chiefs, and he was real super into it. I go, Nick Jones is on our team. He's from Ball State. He's a what? So all of a sudden I showed him, but I said, Carson Steele, Ball State. He goes, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that guy. Then he transferred. Yeah, he transferred to UCLA. But all of a sudden now David Letterman has his 2 favorite Chiefs, and it's Nick Jones, obviously, and add in Carson Steele. But people want to compare him. Where's 42? They think he's the new Sherman, right? The new sausage. But I don't know if that's fair to him. But he's got a lot of skill, and it's a dude to watch.
Let's get David Letterman out at some Chiefs camp practices. What do you think?
We should. I mean, add him to the list of like the daily celebrities that show up, and we have all our comedians that love us. Just throw in Letterman, right? Bring that in. Another guy to mention here is Deneric Prince. We talked about him a lot a year ago on this similar live stream. But Prince, who had 22 touches last year in the preseason, and last year appeared in 2 games, but where is he now? We'll see. And the new kickoff rule could actually open the door for Deneric Prince.
Sure, yeah. I think he generated a lot of buzz last year. Good player out of Tulsa last year as an undrafted free agent. Had a real shot to make this team out of camp. Ended up making the practice squad and being called up for a handful of games. Good player. And you can't discount the impact of being around for a full year, just being at practice every single day, being in the offseason training program every single day, and being in this camp for a second straight year. Let's see how he builds on that.
Again, thanks to the incredible people and professionals at Mosaic, helping the 4-state area, especially here in Northwest Missouri. They help make these live stream possibles. They bring you Chiefs training camp here in St. Joseph. And we're going to have several live shows and live streams, so make sure you keep checking us out. And as we close, we're going to invite you to stay around the Chiefs YouTube channel, because we're going to have live the pressers later today from the media tent once practice closes out. So, all right, Matt, we're off and running, buddy. Matt McMullen, our senior team reporter. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. Lace them up, everybody. This team is focused and getting ready to go to chase history.